Thank you for listening. We're here for the second half of the show with an interview with two people from working in Louisville theater right now. Massie Ware is an actress and director known for the films Reading Kate and Wretch and the web series Bagged and Board, about to premiere its third episode. On stage, she has worked with Kentucky Shakespeare, Sage One Family Theater, Derby Dinner Playhouse, and Actors Theater in Louisville. Also with us is hailing from Arizona, Zach Campbell. Hoogendyk is an actor and playwright now working in Louisville. He has worked elsewhere in the Repertoire Theater of St. Louis, the Cleveland Playhouse, the Gulf Shore Playhouse in Florida, and several theater companies in New York City. And he has written a brand new play that is about to have its world premiere. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a world premiere here in Louisville, called Ossietzky, a peace play. And it's going to be opening January 2nd, 20th. Gosh.
January 20th to 30th.
To the 30th. Thank you.
No problem.
I think it was trying to make sure I said Ossietzky right, like tied my tongue up.
You nailed Ossietzky.
I nailed Ossietzky. That's what's important. So thank you guys for being here. Zach, let's start with you. Briefly tell us, this is a true story. You found out about this story. So how did you come across this story and decide that you had to write this play?
In the summer of 2016, my girlfriend, my now wife, and I were visiting some friends in Singapore, and we were taking their kids to a museum there. And the previous installation at the museum was all about the Peace Prize. And I had just finished the book I was reading, and I was in need of a new book. And all of the Peace Prize merch in the shop was discounted. So I got a cheap book about the history of the Nobel Peace Prize. And within that book, they run down everyone who's ever won the prize. They spent a little bit of time talking about them. And there was less than a page on a guy named Carl von Ossietzky. And I read this less than a page and went, oh, there's got to be more to this story. Because the elevator pitch of it is that he won the Nobel Peace Prize while he was inside a German concentration camp. And I felt like that should be a book and not just a page. So I sort of went on went down the rabbit hole over the next couple of months and found all of this information and decided, this is a story that I really wanted to tell.
Well, and I guess the first question, I want to get Megan involved here, but how does somebody even know what this person is doing inside a concentration camp that he could be recognized with the Nobel Prize at the time? My first thought would be nothing gets out of that camp, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, no, you're right. The Nobel Peace Prize itself is fascinating. It's different than any of the other peace prizes because it's specifically supposed to be for work accomplished in the previous year.
Right.
So it's not a lifetime achievement award normally, at least the way that Alfred Nobel laid out his will. That being said, the Nobel Committee has often bent those rules. And Ossietzky is definitely an example of that. Because again, he had been in a German concentration camp for 4 years by the time they finally awarded him the prize. So I don't think you can argue that it was for something that he did in the previous year. It was definitely for work that he had done in the German peace movement throughout the 1920s and early 1930s.
Well, I don't have a problem with that myself.
Nobel might, but I'm glad that we're all okay with it.
Well, and I think that falls under extraordinary times. And circumstances. So, Megan, how did you meet Zach and get involved with? You're the director of this play, of this production.
I am the director of this play.
And I don't believe this is the first time you've directed, but is this your first time directing a full-length play?
Yes, it is my first time directing the full-length play. Typically, I directed for Derby Dinner Playhouse with one of their community partners, Great House Shryock Traditional Elementary School, changing the world from 3:30 to 5:30 every Thursday. But yeah, so I've done some things in college, but this is really my first full adventure into a full-length directing position. So I'm very excited. I'm loving it. Have great creative partners that we're working with, some wonderful Louisville artists. But I met Mr. Zach Campbell Hoogendyk through Heyman Talent Louisville. My day job is I'm the new talent director for the Louisville office. And so anybody that moves to the area and would like on-camera representation, I meet with them and tell them about the agency and kind of take them through the audition process. And so that's how I met Zach. And then I invited him to join the book club that I was in. And so now we're book club buds. And he said, hey, I wrote this script. And I said, hey, I wrote this script. And so we script exchanged. And then we said, hey, we've got to, I mean, he had already been saying, I want to do this play. But I was like, yeah, we got to do this play.
Well, can you tell us who's in it? Or, I mean, because you're in rehearsals now, you've been in rehearsals for what, 2-3 weeks?
Just a week. We took a couple weeks off for the holidays because chaos. But
yeah.
So Tessa McShane is in the play. She's playing Hilda. Zach Campbell Hoogendyk will be playing Ossietzky. Tony Milder will be playing Sorja, who is the Nazi in charge of that camp. We also have Mary Hussan, who's going to be playing Maud von Ossietzky. And we also have Edgar Miguel Sanchez, who is playing the famous writer Kurt Tucholsky.
So Zach, was it important that you play the character, or what, does that sort of happen naturally? Because obviously you have, from writing the play, a very deep understanding of the character.
Yeah, when I was writing the play, I did not think I was going to play Ossietzky. I've done several readings of the play over the last 5 years now, and I only read the part once in the most recent one that we did with Megan. But
did you have to audition?
No, I didn't put myself through that torture. No, but when we started talking about doing the play, I don't know, something in me just knew that I wanted to do the part. Because like you said, I no one's going to understand it the way that I understand it. At least initially. Hopefully this play goes off and other people will do it, and maybe there'll be people who do end up doing it much better than I could ever have done it. But I was an actor first. I got my MFA from Case Western in the Cleveland Playhouse, and that's what I'm trained in. So I'm not. What's nervous to me is the writer part. The writer and the producer part is what makes me stay up at night, going, "Oh my gosh." I'm worried about acting the same way that I'm worried whenever I'm in a part, but it's not new to me. I'm excited to do it now that we've committed, Zach, you're going to do Ossietzky. It's the most excited I've ever been going into a play.
Great. Well, Megan, I mean, for your sort of full-length debut as a director, did this play give you pause? Was it intimidating, or did you find the material just like pulled you in?
Oh, absolutely. The second part. I think the writing is fantastic. So as I keep telling the playwright, don't worry about that part. Put your producer hat on and panic with me there. But no, not on the writing front. Yeah, it's a lovely story, and the writing it's really full. It's really deep. It talks about so many things that we are still talking about today. That's why I love great theater, is because, as you know, I've done some work with Kentucky Shakespeare and some classical plays. And I always think it's fascinating that we're talking about universal themes 450 years later from Shakespeare. And in this play, we're talking about themes and events and women's rights and nationalism and freedom of the press, this stuff that we are having conversations about. This play is set in the 1920s, 1930s, and we're in 2020. So there are a lot of connecting there's just a lot of connecting themes that I can relate to. I think we can all relate to, and I think the conversations are really important. So I very much was like, oh my goodness, because at some point we were like, well, who should direct the play? And I was like, well, I think there's these people and these people, but everybody was busy or not super, like, well, I don't know.
Megan said like a half a dozen people
I did
that could direct it. And then finally, at one point, I was just like, Megan, why don't you direct it?
And I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. But yeah, so very much into the play and directing it. It is a large undertaking, but as they always say, if you're not doing something that scares you, well, go do that. You know, if you're,
Eleanor Roosevelt.
yeah,
Well,
pretty
you do
much.
something every day that scares you.
Yeah.
Roosevelt's called.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
beside the challenge of just being a director here, you guys have also chosen to produce it yourself. I mean, was there any discussion about let's go find an existing company with infrastructure and all this kind of stuff that would be interested in this play, or did you just feel like it didn't fit anywhere else, and that you needed to just do it yourself?
You know, I finished the first draft of this play in the winter of 2016, and in the 5 years since then, I've submitted it a bunch of places, and I've had good feedback from a bunch of places, but it's really hard to get a play produced. It's really, really hard to get a play produced. And I just believe in this place so much, not even necessarily the play, but the story,
Mhm.
right? I believe in Carl, and I believe in the story, and I think it's an important one for people to hear right now. That I finally decided if I want to get this done, I should just do it, and stop waiting for somebody else to take my hand and lead me across the finish line. So that's what happened. Honestly, I didn't really look at a lot of the theater companies in Louisville, because I've been struggling with this around the country for a number of years. And I don't know, maybe there's somebody in Louisville who would have loved to jump on it, but we didn't really look at the Louisville theater community in terms of producing it.
That's fair. So let me ask you though. So Ossietzky, why was he in a concentration camp? What was his crime according to the Nazis about why he was put in there? Was he a dissident? Would we call him a dissident?
Sure, political activist. So the night of the Reichstag fire, early in the following morning, he was one of the first people that the Nazis swept up. When they took him, the camp system didn't exist. What they had was about 100 people, a couple hundred people sitting in prison cells around the city in Berlin, and they had no place to put them. So they took them and put them in a little makeshift camp, which eventually evolved into the giant camp system that Germany put together. But initially, that first group of people picked up, it wasn't the people that we think about when we think about the Holocaust. What it was the political adversaries of the party, right? People who had written against the party, who had, in the Nazis' eyes or propaganda, inspired the Reichstag fire. The people that were responsible for that event were not necessarily the people who, lit the match, so to speak, or literally. They were the people who inspired those people, and Ossietzky would definitely have been one of those people in Hitler's eyes. Because he had spent the past decade just railing against nationalism and the military in general, and all of these corrupt institutions that were coming up in the German government.
Well, and so to be clear, I mean, when you start talking about concentration camps and the Holocaust, it immediately becomes a topic about, I mean, the Holocaust is specifically about the desire to eliminate the Jewish population from the continent of Europe. But Ossietzky was not a Jew. He was
himself. No, Ossietzky was baptized when he was a baby, but in later life, I think the most that could be said was that he was agnostic. He did not practice any religion, as far as I can find in any research. Whether that was just because he was too busy or he stopped believing or whatever, I don't know. But he was definitely not Jewish.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, let me come back to you for a second. So I'm gathering from your tone that this has been a really wonderful experience for you so far. Knock on wood, you're not quite over the finish line yet. What has there been anything about directing a full-length play or doing something on this scale that has surprised you or scared you or challenged you, or what's your experience been like?
Oh, Omicron. You know, we were like, we're going to do this play in the fall. By then we'll be vaccinated. It should be fine. And then it was like, okay, well, maybe we'll do it after. I mean, come on, it'll be almost 2 years later. Like COVID, come on, it'll be done. Well, here we are, friends, still asking these questions, still, figuring out the pandemic play life. So that's been fun, just kind of like the uncertainty, but just knowing, there's always a way forward. The show, I won't say must go on, but it likely will, in some form or fashion. So there's lots of exciting external events that you get to play with and say, okay, well, this is the information that we have today.
What are the protocols you're having to exercise? I mean, because it's like that, even that changes. I mean, we've been going to theater and having different kinds of protocols. You first talked to me about this when we were at a play at the University of Louisville, where I think they let 40 people be in the audience or something like that, and so what are the protocols you're putting in place to try to make it safe to come see Ossietzky?
So everybody in the cast is vaccinated. We haven't talked about this, but I think coming back from Christmas, we might rehearse in some masks. I've also gotten a hold of some clear masks in case we do need to implement those in performance. But we do have the Kentucky Center for the Arts policy is that everybody has to present a vaccine card or a negative COVID test from 72 hours prior. And we do have mandatory 6 feet away from the audience and the performers. So that's sort of how we're going forward. Again, things are changing. So as they change, we will also be updating our protocols. We do have some tests for people in the cast to make sure everybody is good to go. But
Do you have understudies? Do you have understudies in case somebody tests?
I think you're looking at her.
We'll throw a costume on Megan and give her a script and shove her on stage. I want to, the Kentucky Center's protocols are what we're following in performance. Right. I also want to shout out Commonwealth Theater Center,
absolutely,
where we're rehearsing. We're following their protocols when we're there, and we're temperature checking every time we come in, and masking in the building, and only walking one way up the stairs and down the other staircase to avoid contact. And so shout out Commonwealth as well as Kentucky Center.
Great. So that's true. We are partnering with Commonwealth Theater Center, at least for rehearsal space. Tessa McShane and Charlie were very gracious, and Jess, Jessica De La Rosa, for allowing us to be in that space. Because I'm sure this is a thing you've heard from artists in town. Finding a rehearsal space is pretty difficult unless you have all the money. So we're really grateful to them for partnering with us on that.
Right. That is the toughest thing. I mean, I think we need more performance spaces, but we need like a couple more performance spaces, and we need like a dozen more rehearsal spaces. Because even the rehearsal spaces that are in existence are often, they're booked. Somebody's using them because everybody's trying to produce shows again.
Yep.
Well, I, for one, am happy to show my vaccination card. I have no problem with that. The first time I had to do it was going up to Cincinnati to see Angelica Santiago to play it. I said, thank you for requiring that. Thank you for doing that, man, because I bet somebody gives you a hard time today. So I'm all for that, and I'm glad you guys are taking those precautions, and but the most exciting thing is that it's not so rare, but it is still not the most common thing to be seeing a play that is a brand new thing that I don't know anything about, that's just like, except for what you guys have talked about. So I think it's really exciting that this is a world premiere in Louisville, Kentucky. I got to wrap it up, but thank you, Megan Massie Ware, director, and Zach Campbell. Okay, I think I said it wrong. Did I say Hoogendyk? Hoogendyk. I thought I said it wrong earlier, but anyway.
Everybody stumbles over.
Or it was just the dates I screwed up. So anyway, the playwright and the director for Ossietzky, a peace play running January 20th through the 30th at the Mex Theater in the Kentucky Performing Arts. You do know it as the Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts if you lived here for more than a minute. And you can go to their website, kentuckyperformingarts.org, to find out about tickets and everything. It's a world premiere in Louisville, folks. So hoorah. I mean, to me, it's like if you're making decisions about what to go see, something being a world premiere should make it rise to the top. That's just me. That's just what the logic that hits my head. So,
I'm
Tell
okay
all
with
your
that
friends.
out in a year.
all right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.